All right, so now we're back to talking about expenditure for your 12-month plan in your profit and loss accounts. All right. Um, it's quite simple. There's not a lot of teaching here. It's kind of, I mean, you're always going to know your business the best and what you want to be doing. Um, so what I will say over here is one of the main aspects to be looking at is correlating certain expenditures with your revenue predictions. All right. And what do I mean by that? Let's just say you predict for your first month you're going to sell €2,000 worth of products or services. And then products and services, each one has a 10% operating cost. All right. So to explain that a little bit more simply, if you were selling photo shoots, photographer photo shoots, you know that you would have to spend on average around 10% of all of your photo shoots on travel, on maybe new lenses, printing the photos, etc., etc. So your expenditure is correlated with your income, right? If you do 10,000 euro worth of sales in your first month, you're going to spend 1,000 euro in expenditure. And the way you can correlate this in a spreadsheet is actually quite simple. And I've done it here just for an example, is here in packaging, transport, and delivery. All right. So maybe a very easy example to think about is if you're selling a camera, every time you sell a camera, you have to send it and you're giving free postage, let's say, and it's going to cost you 10%. I put in a little formula here that's quite easy to do. And it basically says, I'm just going to click on this. It basically says everything that happens in D17, which is our cash income, we're going to divide it by 10 because we know that we're always spending 10% on delivery and packaging. And that way, all right, say your first month you didn't do 2,000, but you did actually 4,000. You had a great month. Let me just change that. It will also update the packaging and transport delivery automatically. So once you have that set up, you can jump into your revenue and start to maybe think about the best case scenario, the worst case scenario, somewhere in between, and kind of see where where your scalability is, right? Or what expenses you need to be looking at and be careful about, in cash flow wise. Besides that, if we go back into your expenditure, one other aspect that people have a little bit of difficulty with is VAT. All right, so VAT and tax and stuff like that. So it can be quite hard, for example, for people to calculate PYE, USC for employees that they might have to bring on. And kind of might be quite difficult to calculate how much VAT you're going to be taking in versus how much VAT you're going to be giving out. And you might even be asking yourself, how do I calculate this myself? How does it all work, etc., etc. Well, the good news is if you're opening up an LLC or sole trader, you don't actually have to register for VAT in Ireland unless you make over 55,000 euro in services and 85,000 euro in goods sold. Now, I'm going to leave the link to that actual threshold in the description in case it changes. But as the time of this making, which is 2022 December, that's it. That's true. So you could do your VAT calculations, and there might be some reasons why you want to register for VAT, but understand that even at the highest degree, it will only change your balance sheet or your profit and loss, should I say, by 20%, 25%. All right. So you could always add in that kind of margin of error, let's just say, to your net profit at the end. So don't get hung up on that. I see it's something a lot of people get hung up on. They have some crazy calculators trying to figure out how much PYE they're going to have to pay, and it takes up a lot of time. When in reality, what you should be focusing on is the core ins and outs of your business, and let the VAT and the tax payments be taken care of your accountant. So that's another thing I want to point out. Here we can see pre-expansion and pre-startup phase. So just like I said that the pre-expansion and startup phase on your income was how much money you put into your business at the start. In your expenditure, it's how much money you're going to have to spend, right? So imagine if you were a baker and you had to make cookies or something, you would put 10,000 euro into your business up here. All right, and then you would buy an oven for 8,000 euro, and then you would put that in equipment leasing, or you would put that into, for example, office stationaries, or you would put that into a relevant section. Another thing to note is you have these two here called other and describe. You feel free to change these to anything a relevant field for your business. You do not have to keep these values or these kind of sections of spending the way they are. You can change them as you kind of need. These are generally the basic or generic accounting labels for each expenditure. So once that's done, you'll see down here this little table, that's all automatic, right? So that will show you your cash flow for every month. All right. So if you've taken in €2,000 in revenue and you spend €3,000, well then there's negative €1,000 for that month. But there could be €5,000 in your bank account because you invested €10,000. So that's what's going to reflect on this bottom part here. It's going to reflect how much money is in your bank account at the start of every month and at the end of every month, and how much profit or loss you've made on a monthly basis. So that's another very interesting indication to look at. And then it will give you your total net profit for the year in this gray column here. You can also see that there is a handy little graph that we've put together to kind of give you a better understanding of, let me just pull it up here, give you a better understanding of, one second now, give you a better understanding of what your income is looking like, right? So like we said before, we're going to aim to have a kind of linear progression of income. You're never going to start at full capacity, and it's going to take you a while to get your customers and get your services or products out there. So this graph here, which is your total income based over time, you're going to want to see a nice linear graph and perhaps a few curves, especially if your business is orientated around seasonal impacts. Over here, you're going to see your breakdown per cost, which is a very useful graph to kind of see, all right, where's most of my money going to, right? And when it comes back to the correlation of products, one other aspect that can be quite difficult to calculate is, say you're selling 3 or 4 products and each one has a different expenditure or operational cost. So what do I mean by that? If you're doing photographers for weddings and that costs you roughly 20% on the revenue you take in. So every time you sell a wedding product for €1,000, you have to spend 200. And then you might have a baby photo shoot, which is pure profit, right? You don't spend anything. So you probably ask yourself, how do I reflect that in my profit and loss? Now, there's 2 ways you can do it. Here you can see other income describe. There's no problem with making 2 more columns that says sales cash this service, sales cash this service, sales cash this service. And based on them calculations, come in down into your expenditure, make a little Excel formula that reflects the costs for the different services specifically. All right. So that's a common question I get. And based on all that information, I think you guys aren't going to have much trouble with your projection, with your expenditure, as it's in full control. And I think it's more trying to correlate expenditure with income, which is very difficult and does take some time to kind of work out. So you have the course down below in the description if you're on YouTube, and if you're on the educational Cryt.e course, you can actually submit this file and we could have a look at it and bounce a few ideas off it and maybe look at some aspects that can be improved upon or that are working well, give you some feedback. So that's what you can do in the description or through the form on the educational.ie course. On the next course, we're going to be looking at your 12-month marketing plan, which is going to show you how to actually get out there and sell your product and service and hit them targets that you have set in your turnover. So looking forward to that course. And if you need anything, drop a comment down below or fill in the form and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.